welcome back to Cut the Slack. We are here in the latter part of June now in 2020, and we've seen a lot of stuff going on in the news. Obviously, we've talked about all of the crazy pandemic stuff, and then, of course, we have a lot of civil unrest that we talked about too recently in regards to racism, and we're working through this. And I think there's some interesting observations here. I think the expectation is that by this time in this country, maybe because we have so much awesome technology, we should all have it worked out by now, and that would be the hope and the dream, really, that the whole world comes together and ends racism and a lot of things. And then, racism in our country, a lot of it stemmed from slavery, right? So we had slavery in the early years of our country. That's obviously been abolished and it's been a long time since people were keeping slaves here. But we have people, a large group of our society that are really unhappy. It really doesn't matter what race they are, because all races have been unhappy at this point about some stuff that's happened with the police departments in certain areas, and there's some growing that we're having to do as a country and as a society to learn things about racism that, in our case, have stemmed from slavery. So the question is do you think we should have it all worked out by now? How long, have we been around as a country, and how does that compare to other countries?
So Ethiopia has been an established country since 980 BC.
Before Christ. Okay, so 1,000 years before Christ.
They've been Ethiopia.
Okay.
So we are babies.
Yeah.
We are babies in this game of countries,
I heard India has been around for over 2,500 years or something around that number.
Yeah.
So they've been around as a country for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And we have only been around since 1776.
Yeah,
so
we're toddlers.
A little over a couple hundred years, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're toddlers in this, and the whole idea of what's going on here is like, we're not supposed to have it figured out, but we need to keep perspective real. We need to keep perspective as to how we live here versus other places. Libya, there is a active slave trading system going on as we speak.
Out in the open?
Out in the open. Like, you go to YouTube, you put Libya slave trade, and you will see tons of videos of accounts within the last 3 months that are posting, 8 months, a year, whatever it is. They are buying and selling slaves as we speak. So, if you want to dig deep onto what that place looks like, it's a huge concentration camp. It's people being held there in cages, basically, and they're barely fed. A lot of them are dying of just sickness and disease, and it's horrible. Like, it is horrible. And again, like, I was watching one.
Are these people born into slavery?
They're considered refugees, right? So maybe they're trying to leave a part of the country where there's unrest, right? So it's kind of going back to that, you're driving and you see the mob. What do you do? Like, so maybe they're trying to get away from violence or whatever it is, but these people, somehow they get thrown into these government concentration camps. A lot of times, it's them getting kidnapped. Like, they're getting taken based on their ideas or who they associated with or what their parents did, like, there's all these different factors. But I was watching this one lady, she was driving down the road with her kid. A government, like a siren truck pulled her over, 3 men. They raped her for hours and hours and hours. And she woke up in a barn, like basically a barrack. And she's been there ever since, and these stories are not uncommon. So that is one place of the world where civil unrest and all these different, groups trying to fight one another and take one over. And it's like seeing stuff like that and then looking at America, like we don't have it that bad.
So, like right now, what you're saying is there's people that are just driving down the street. The government, the military, the police, whoever is pulling them over. Some people are being raped and tortured and then put into camps, or if they're refugees, maybe they're part of a civil war,
Right.
And their side did not win, and they get thrown into a refugee camp. They might have been regular everyday people that were working regular jobs, and now they're slaves.
That's it.
And that's it. They're sold into a slave trade.
Yeah.
And there's no like happy ending to that.
Yeah.
And so we've come a long way in that we've abolished slavery. There's still slavery obviously going on today in more than one country. I mean, we've got 195 countries in the world, right?
Right.
And we're just one of the few that happen to be a first world country that has some law.
It's it's crazy. Like, but again, being free, not being in jail, and living in America, even if you're on food stamps and welfare and
Sure.
all these things, like if we take the scope of the entire world population,
Yeah.
you're still in the top like 20-30% of income of the world.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
true.
it's like that perspective is unifying. That perspective says, hey, you know what? We don't have it that bad. Given all the terrible things that have happened, we still don't have it that bad of what it could be. You know?
There's problems and there's things we need to work out, definitely, big things. But yeah, my neighbor, his name is Kevin. He's from Vietnam. And he told me a story, his life, man. This guy grew up in Vietnam. He said, we didn't have toys when we were there because all we cared about was getting food for the day.
Yeah.
Just living, just surviving.
One mission.
That was it. So they didn't care about the fact that they didn't have a Hot Wheel or this toy or that toy because food was the only thing they cared about.
Yeah.
And he finally had escaped through, some pretty harrowing events. And he escaped and he went to, I think, Thailand and then the Philippines and ended up in a refugee camp. This was not one where they took him into slavery. It was a legit refugee camp. But that's not saying much. So what he said there was he lived in a grass hut, basically, a hut that they had built.
Yeah.
Dirt floors, obviously no bathroom, no running water, nothing. It was a shelter.
Yeah.
And then they would walk to a certain place, and this place would give them food every other day and not on Sunday.
Wow.
So they would get food maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not Saturday, not Sunday. And the food that he would get would be just enough for 2 days. So he would get like a handful of rice and maybe a small handful of meat if he was lucky. And that was 2 days worth of food for him. So he would have to divide this handful of rice and bit of chicken or whatever meat they decided to give him, and make that his food for 2 days.
Yeah.
So we're talking this much food for 2 days. And sorry about it. There's nobody to tell.
Yeah.
And he lived that way for 2 years. 2 years, starving almost. So when he came here to America. Luckily, he was so thankful for our school system. So because he was an immigrant, he did get a lot of grants and he really got his degree for free.
Yeah.
And now he is a computer-aided design. I don't know. That's his trade. He does computer design.
Yeah,
CAD, which I guess is engineering and architecture and stuff like that.
A lot of different industries.
For the transit system, for the road system, for Caltrans.
Got it.
Yeah. So I mean, talk about like he went from only wanting food as a child to living in a refugee camp to finally getting here in America. And, now he's wearing a polo and driving a Tesla. You would never know how hard of a life he has lived.
Yeah.
And to come here and it was kind of funny, but not funny because I brought up that I grew up poor. And it was like almost as soon as I brought it up, I knew I had kind of made a mistake, you
Kind
know?
of chuckled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he goes, even the poorest people in America
Boom.
are doing way better than I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
man. And
and in
that's
some
facts.
cases, the homeless are doing better than what he was doing because here, like you mentioned in a previous podcast, there is opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, at least there's opportunity to get food from restaurants or handouts or something like that. And in the place he lived, that there was no opportunity. There was no starting your own business. There was no creating your own little side hustle
Yeah.
because there was in Vietnam a place that made food and a few rich people and then all the poor people and nothing else.
That's it.
There was no opportunity. There was no selling lipstick. There was no
Well, if
anything.
he could get his hands on some lipstick, that would probably be very valuable.
Well, over here we
You
do
know?
all that stuff, you
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
mean, there's people that are selling eyeliner, people that are selling candles, and there's so many different opportunities that I think we just don't take advantage of as a people. You know, there's so many ways for us to make money here, and people aren't taking advantage of that. And like you know, back to the original point, we do have a ton of things that can improve here in America, a ton of things that can improve,
Yeah.
and all of us could value or benefit from learning, you know, some of these new values. But when you compare it to the stories that you told and the story that I heard,
Again, just the whole thing here was civilizations. They come and go.
they do.
They come and go, and they're
That's
always
right.
they're always coming and going. So we happen to just be dropped, on this little era of time, and
As a superpower.
it's
But
like,
like Rome was around for how long? You know,
I have no idea.
I mean, those guys were dominant,
Right.
you know, in that day of the gladiator, right? Like they conquered all,
Right.
and when you see an empire like that, you almost figure that they're just going to be around forever.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go into the dynasties of China, you know, the Ming dynasty and all of those that
Yeah.
were literally around for thousands of years, and you think it's never ever going to change. And here we are, a 200-year-old company. We're kind of a company.
Pretty much.
A 200-year-old country, and we feel we're acting like, you know, we're the coolest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, it's really immature. People, even the whole narrative of what's going on right now is so surface level, and people they need to get back to that center of gratitude
Yeah.
and perspective. Get out of their own little bubble of what they feel entitled to, what they feel they deserve. Get over it. Like,
Yeah.
you are blooped here in this era. You could have been blooped in an era where there was ritual sacrifice.
Yeah, the
happening.
Mayans and the Aztecs.
Like, dude,
Yeah.
that's real.
You
Like,
could have been blooped into the medieval times where
have been
people
blooped.
were just running amok.
dude, it's so many different eras, and it's like, you're here in America, and it's like, we get it. We know it's not perfect, okay? But again, we have to keep perspective
Yeah.
as to what it could be versus what it is. Everyone calm the fuck down and just be grateful that it all goes back to that,
You know,
And-
it's almost like we need an alien invasion just so the world will come together as one.
Yeah.
You know, to where it's not about you or me. It's about, hey, let's save Earth
yeah.
as a planet and become good people together.
If you could choose, all right, so let me see. Every civilization is a set of ideas
Yeah.
that citizens must submit to. They must prescribe to.
Right.
You have to.
Yeah.
This whole mask thing, I am like so anti.
Yeah.
I'm so anti. I've been like, I'm discouraged to even going out into like certain public spaces because I'm like, I don't even want to deal with the back and forth of it. Like,
Yeah.
the little amount of interactions I have with the marketplace, it's already like, no, I'm not. There's that tension.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'm already like kind of sheltering myself, like, because I don't even want to deal with the back and forth, But this mask thing is a government instituted idea that we must subscribe to.
Right.
Otherwise, we might find ourselves in jail. And that's a reality, like I get a fine for not wearing a mask. I say, I'm not paying your fine. Your fine is false. I get a warrant. Billy's in jail.
Right. You can't fight that. You can't fight it. Like, you can't fight the government in this.
So that's a real possibility, that like people, and it's just this, that would be today's ritual sacrifice of civilization's ideas that we must subscribe to.
Right.
Throughout every civilization, there were people that didn't want to wear that robe. Everyone's wearing a white robe, and it's like, I don't want to wear a white robe.
Well, if you don't, that's blasphemy, and then that's against society's rules at the time.
At that moment,
and you're gonna be beheaded in this case, or
dude.
You have the Salem witch trials where we had it. I don't know what happened really there, but you had a lot of people that were probably unjustly burned because they didn't follow the script.
They didn't follow the script, and you could just bloop right out. You got blooped in. You're like, no,
bye-bye.
this ain't good. This ain't for me. Okay, bloop, you're out. And it's like we have to. These are like choices. Like how much are we gonna push back? It all. Our last podcast or a conversation I had recently was just like, life. The meaning of life is just, keep on surfing, keep, just ride whatever is throwing at you. Just keep it moving.
That's all I do now. I mean, with all the stuff that's happened this year, I'm just like, hey, whatever is clever,
Bring
man.
it.
Whatever comes, I do pivot. I can move and change, and I'm more than happy to do it. So I'm not trying to fight the wave anymore. Actually, I'm not trying to fight the ocean anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just riding the wave, man. I'll find my way.
So I've limited myself because I know that when it comes to this certain blip of time, I'm that confrontational dude. That's like, I will say no. I'm not to the store clerk or to the cashier or to whoever the fuck,
Sure.
So it's like, I need to remove myself at that point. Like, it's like you're dealing with, a toxic person. You're not going to get baited into reacting a certain way. It's like, all right, just remove yourself, So I'll lay low. I'm going to lay low for a little bit.
And the people that you may be doing battle with,
they don't deserve it.
They can't do anything either. You know, if you're out there debating,
they can say no.
If you're up there debating it with the CEO of Walmart, but when you have Linda at the cash register and she's telling you, she was instructed to tell you to wear a mask.
Yeah.
You're not going to win any political or social battles with Linda.
Yeah.
She's going to go home after 5 o'clock and clock out. You know what I mean?
But most Lindas don't really fight back. They really don't. So that's what I'm saying. Like you can get over it. You can fight through it. It's the only point there is like, again, do you want to have those exchanges every day, twice a day?
Right.
It's like, obviously you don't. So knowing myself, it's like, I don't know. I'm so stubborn that it's like, I don't want to bend so much, because there's so much research that says it's bad for us, and I can get into that with them if they want.
But that's not going to do you any good there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's funny because you talk about Ethiopia. I mentioned India's 2,500 years old. Wonder what this country is going to be like when we're 500.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully by then we'll have it all worked out.
Yep.
Maybe that'll make everybody happy.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.